Several people have asked over the last weeks about where they might find out more about the United Methodist Church. And there are a number of books that could be offered, and they are in our church library, or they are in my private library, and I'm more than willing to lend them out. But more specifically, I think they were looking for a course, a class on Methodism. We have offerings at our church in emergent thought, sharing our journeys. Those are on Sundays and on Wednesday evenings. We do a Lenten study, we do an Advent study, and we do work in racial equity and justice, which is a focus of our ministry and our mission. I thought about where else in the week would we gather people, and I realized our church doesn't gather in a single space, even on Sunday mornings, as we do much online. I have in my video library a course that I taught close to the 2016 General Conference, and before I came here in 2016 to be the pastor at First Church. I thought it might be a little dated, but then as I watched through it, not much has changed in the broader question of the polity of the church since 2016. And I'll tell you why. The General Conference of the United Methodist Church meets every 4 years. Delegates from all over the United Methodist world, which is global, gather together to write and rewrite through legislation our book of polity, or the way we determine we are going to live together. That is called the Book of Discipline. Normally, it's rewritten every 4 years when those delegates gather. But the last time it has been written was 2016 because of the pandemic that has postponed the 2020 General Conference now till 2024. 8 years between the 2016 and the 2024 General Conference. In 2016, which the course that is online now has prepared us for, there was a very important focus on the issues of inclusion of LGBTQIA+ persons in the ministry, the mission, and the ordination of the church. At that time, it was a very difficult moment when it seemed that the church would vote to split. I remember the faces of the bishops, especially our bishop, Hisu Jung, a usually joyous man with a glint in his eye, regardless of the situation. I remember him simply looking at the vote tally, and I had never seen what came over him in terms of grief and difficulty. The church voted to stay with its restrictive language around inclusion. A special session was called of the General Conference on this issue alone in 2019, and it happened in St. Louis. The seminary called me here in Madison and asked me to go to St. Louis and to lead a class. I did that, and I sat with the Garrett group, and I also sat with the Wisconsin delegation. A most difficult time. The church again voted to remain with the traditional language. And we were to then gather the next year in Minneapolis in 2020 in order to what we thought at that time. We thought, how is it that this denomination was to split. I remember coming back to First Church. We held an informational session. The sanctuary was full, and our church decided, and I was quite clear in my leadership of this, that in this house, in this congregation, regardless of what the denomination might decide, we would stand with our mission and our ministry that in this house, all would still mean all. And that has become our slogan, if you will, how we are known. They are the banners that are in the front of the church. And many people in this community know us for that and within this annual conference. All means all. We were concerned that that meant that we were going to have to leave the denomination because the denomination would still stand with its traditional exclusive language. Something amazing has happened in the years since to 2022 as I am recording this, and that is in many annual conferences in the United Methodist Church, what has predominated has been a much more progressive response to what happened in 2019, including the majority of churches here in Wisconsin. And the recent bishops' elections are mainly of progressive leaders for the church, including one bishop that was elected in the Western jurisdiction who is a married gay man, who joins Bishop Karen Elevato in that jurisdiction, who is a married lesbian woman. So the church is moving in a direction that is similar, if not exactly, where we stand on this issue missionally. And we will wait until 2024. Now, having said all of that, and having that as being the central focus of the church, as we look around and see here in Wisconsin that there are 63 churches as I speak now that are planning to disaffiliate under special rules that were put forward in 2019. We are in turmoil around a single reality. Who are we? How do we embrace who we are? Who shall we elect as leaders? And that has been what we have focused on since 2016. Many people have come to me in this congregation and said, what does all of this mean? How does all of this work? Because the issue itself, the inclusion, who we are as a church, is against a background of who United Methodists are. We call that our polity, our decision-making around how we will live together. Our book of order, if we were Presbyterians, would express how we have agreed to live together. We call that the discipline. It's a spiritual word. What are our disciplines that are both spiritual and the agreements of how we are going to live together? Well, when was that course going to be taught? In the fullness of what that means, in the integrity of the background of this denomination, to which, frankly, I have given my whole life, with its blemishes, its heartaches, my disagreements with many of the things that we have done, but still, I'm an ordained elder of the church, and part of my ordination is to deal with the church's order, how we will order ourselves for mission and ministry. And so I looked through the online course that I had developed, which is my own intellectual property, I guess. And Garrett Evangelical was the place where I did that. And I will share that with you online. It's 13 sessions. It's a lot of time of commitment, but each session has a title. So I would invite you to watch the opening introduction, if you will, and then you can look at what the titles are. Some of you will want to watch all 13, and I would encourage you to do that. Others will want to go to the session on the local church, for instance. Or you might want to go to the section on our orders of ministry so you understand who we all are. I would hope you all will watch the segment on the social creed and the social principles of our church. But actually, I invite you to watch it all. There are interviews with church leaders like former bishop of this annual conference, Linda Lee, current bishop in northern New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania, John Scholl. There's an interview with one of the first leaders of the connectional table, Amy Valdez-Barger, who has since moved on to the General Board of Global Ministries, but she shares what that connectional table means for the way in which we order our lives at the general church level. There's an interview with Margaret Ann Crane, who was affectionately known as Dr. Deacon. She was a colleague of mine, and we taught this United Methodist class together for a while. And it will be clear when you watch that interview as you think about who are your pastoral leaders are here. Ron and I are elders of the church, and Mallory is moving on toward ordination as a deacon. What does that all mean? Will be embedded in that particular video. The videos run around 45 minutes each. The wonder of them being online is you can stop them, watch them while you're cooking dinner, watch them in the evening when there's nothing interesting on television, or simply watch them because you are very interested in them. I invite you to do that. We will try to find times when there will be discussion, probably once a month, but we're still trying to figure out how to do that. That will be announced here. But I encourage you to begin by watching these videos. In the months ahead, weeks and months ahead, I will work with Holly, and I want to thank Holly Johnson, who is our videographer and makes this possible for us to do, with my colleagues and some of our retired pastors here, as we also offer a richer discussion of the history of the Methodist and the Evangelical United Brethren movement, which came together to be the United Methodist Church. That's the history portion of this. And then some more specificity around the doctrine or the theology, the teaching, if you will, that is the United Methodist Church. Anyone to be ordained in the United Methodist Church must take 3 courses: history, doctrine, and polity. I know that many will say, this is fairly complicated stuff. Can it be made easier? Well, of course it can. But then you miss the richness, you miss the nuance, and you miss the reason why many of us have come to understand ourselves as United Methodist. And that although we stand very clearly on the issues of justice, so that our LGBTQIA+ siblings are fully embraced, fully part of this church, and fully not other than who we are, but fully we are together in all of this. It is still a matter of grief that we have not found a way to convert to what we believe the gospel is calling us to be as an inclusive church, and to live out together the richness of this denomination. A denomination that has known schism, splitting, division before, but always seeks a way not to give up what we see as God's justice in the world, but to find a way forward, that we seek that justice together. We began that path when we came together after the Civil War. Our church was divided. It took until 1939 for it to come back together. And we still have not fully lived into a church that is not divided in some way by race. I pray that the very human reality of our story in the umbrella of a gracious faith will begin to reveal itself in this course in polity, in history, and in doctrine. I hope it enriches your life, that it both confuses and illuminates your understanding of who we are together in Jesus for that mission of hospitality, grace, and justice. Peace be with you, and thank you for watching.